as we catch up with Jason Garrett. And NBC Football Night in America will be on the road Sunday at 2 Eastern in Philadelphia. It'll be the divisional game between the Rams and Eagles. Kickoff will be at 3 Eastern on NBC and Peacock. By the way, Jason this summer was a busy guy. He was working with NFL Films, and in May, he was with Troy Aikman and Dak Prescott. He then traveled to San Diego. He was with Drew Brees, Norv Turner, and then the legendary quarterback coach Tom House. Went to Phoenix. He worked with Kurt Warner. He also was there for Aaron Rodgers and in Buffalo with Josh Allen. So what was he doing with all of these great offensive minds, all of these quarterbacks, and what he did is available on YouTube. Jason joins us now. So give us a synopsis of what you were trying to accomplish or did accomplish with your summer project here.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was up at training camp visiting the Packers, and Matt LaFleur was great. I spent the whole day with him and sat in meetings. And at the end of the day, we're finishing up the quarterback meeting. And, I used to always tell our players in Dallas that if you get a chance to be around greatness, don't ask guys about their house or their car or their boat, right? Ask them about why they're great. And so I'm sitting next to Aaron Rodgers, and I said, I'm going to take my own advice here. And I just turned to him and said, hey, just before I leave, just give me one thought on throwing. One of the best throwers of his generation, one of the best of all time. And I've known him for a long time. My first year coaching was in Miami for Nick Saban, and it was 2005, the year that Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers were coming out. We had the second pick of the draft, so spent a lot of time with him then and coached him in the Pro Bowl and competed against him, and he's always been very generous with me. And so he jumps up out of the seat and he says, all I think about when I throw is getting the weight to the inside of my left ankle, the inside of my left calf, and the inside of my left knee. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never heard anybody talk about that. And so it struck me, I'm flying home that night, and I had a throwing sequence of Joe Namath on my wall when I was growing up. It was 8 throws from his book, the classic A Matter of Style. I don't know if you remember that, but it was just incredible. And so I had this image of Namath in my mind, talking about throwing. That's how I envisioned the perfect throwing motion. And here's Aaron Rodgers 50 years later talking about the inside of his left ankle. I'm like, what are we talking about here? So what it struck me that the best thrower then threw it one way, the best thrower now throws it another way, and the evolution of the throwing motion, it's different. And so I asked a few people about it, and they kind of agreed with me. And I said, I want to talk to the principal guys. I want to talk to the guys who are actually throwing the ball. And so I got with Troy and Dak, and then it kind of grew to get a chance to talk to Drew Brees and Tom House and Norv and everybody from there. And eventually we talked to Aaron and Josh Allen. And what we found out is it has evolved, that the great throwers back then could really throw the ball. You go back and look at the tape of Joe Namath and Terry Bradshaw and those guys, they could throw the heck out of the ball. Marino, Elway, Aikman, all these guys, but they threw it differently than the guys are throwing it today. And so we just did an examination of it, and we did it with NFL Films, and NFL Films, as we all know, is one of the great entities of all time, so it was a really fun project to do.
But also, this is the evolution of the golf swing. They're hitting it further. They're using the ground. Getting kind of leverage with that. With baseball, we're seeing pitchers throw, more pitchers throwing faster than ever. Are these quarterbacks throwing the ball faster? Like, is that important, or is it the quickness of the release that's more important?
Well, one thing that, part of this project is we're going to try to go deeper on this. It was a 22-minute segment, NFL Films Presents, and one of my pangs when we finished it was we probably used less than 1% of the content for each of the guys. Troy Aikman talked about it for over an hour. Drew Brees, hour and a half. I mean, we had so much great stuff, and you have to try to fit it into this little window. So I think you can go a lot deeper on all this. And one of the great takeaways is all these rotational athletes do things with the same principles of physics. And you said it. It's ground force, it's rotation, it's lag. This concept of lag where you're opening your hips and you're keeping your upper body closed and you're kind of corkscrewing and then it all whipping together, that's not something we talked a ton about when I was growing up throwing a football. It was more about shoulder rotation. It's all coming together. And so I think these guys are more into that. And a big part of this is the game has changed. When you think about Namath, we go back and we see these pictures of Namath. He's literally taking a 13-step drop. He's 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, rifling these balls down the field. And, some people will say Namath, well, I completed 50% of his passes. He threw more interceptions than touchdowns. Well, the game was completely different back then. Bubble screens and rocket screens and get it out of your hand and all that kind of stuff. That's not what the game was. So these guys were bigger, stronger, like rifling it down the field. Now it's more like shortstop to second base. We're getting the ball out of our hand a lot. So how do you generate power with using ground force and rotation and have these quicker little Derek Jeter type throws in the middle of the infield? I think the game has become a lot of that, and these guys are awfully good at it.
Yeah, it's available on YouTube. It's nerd-tastic. Like, you'll nerd out if you're into this stuff. And Jason sent it to me, and I'm like, this is great. You did a great job. Jason will be in Philadelphia. It's the Rams and the Eagles coming up on Sunday. There's always a surprise divisional round weekend. Give me the surprise.
I don't think there's a surprise this weekend. I really don't. I think Kansas City wins, as great as Houston was last week. We had the show on Sunday night, and we had these gigantic pictures of Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce behind us. And I just turned around and said, first ballot, first ballot, first ballot. And they're playing at home. I think it's hard for Houston, as great as they played last week, to go up there and beat them. I really do. I think it'll be hard for Washington to go into Detroit to win. As great as Jaden Daniels was last week, I think it's going to be hard for the Rams to go to Philly and win. And then the one that I think everybody's waiting for is Josh against Lamar. And I think that's a pick 'em anyway. So I don't see any big surprises. I think we have 4 great games.
You got to take Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? Who are you taking?
Every time I'm on this show, you're asking me these kinds of questions. Gun to my head, I'd take Josh Allen. But I think Lamar Jackson's one of the most amazing players I've ever seen in my life. So it's hard for me to argue against him. 2-time MVP, he'll probably be a 3rd MVP, and he's revolutionized the quarterback position.
But
how about you?
Tougher to, well, I thought Josh Allen was the MVP this year. Even Lamar had the stats last year. Josh had the stats, didn't win. So it's a fluid philosophy or criteria for voting for MVP, and I think that's where I go. Okay, I didn't expect Buffalo to be this good. Now, granted, they were in a bad division, but I looked at them as an underdog, and I thought I'd actually seen Josh Allen become a great quarterback this year, where he didn't force it. He didn't put on the Superman cape as much as he likes to, and it felt like that was a true team effort. So MVP for a team, I would give it to him. I thought Derrick Henry is a great security blanket. Now, I did have somebody, a coach, who said the following. You keep talking about how, Derrick Henry helped Lamar Jackson. Did you ever think Lamar Jackson helped out Derrick Henry as well? Because what he was in Tennessee, anybody could have had him. Nobody wanted him. They take him, and he rushes for nearly 2,000 yards. So a long-winded way of saying I would take Josh. There's no wrong answer in this.
Yeah, the trickiest thing for me is I was fortunate to be on those great teams with the Cowboys in the 90s. And one of the things I learned was everyone benefited from each other. Troy Aikman made Emmitt Smith better. Emmitt Smith made Troy Aikman better. Emmitt Smith made the receivers better. The line made Emmitt better. Emmitt made the line better. They made the defense better. The defense, and so that's when you're a great team, that's what happens. And sometimes you say each of the guys, their candidacy for something like MVP gets diminished because, hey, he's got Derrick Henry. Well, he's, and fair or unfair, but that's what teams are. Magic and Kareem played together. Bird and McHale played together. I mean, Jordan and Pippen played together. I mean, if you want to be a great championship team, you have to have good players around you. And so I don't think we should diminish Lamar, but it certainly is an advantage for Lamar to have Big 22 behind him.
Jason Garrett, NBC Football Night in America, former Cowboys head coach. What advice would you give Deion Sanders about taking the Cowboys job if offered?
If he wants to do it, he should take it. He's done an amazing job at Colorado. I think he's changing college football in some ways, and he's impacting a ton of lives. But if he feels compelled to dive into it, dive into it. He and Jerry have a long relationship, and they've
But what
had
does he need to know, though, Jason, about Jerry the owner, Deion the coach, that's different than that owner and that player? So this is different. This is day to day, week to week, game to game, and that's a whole different game.
No doubt. But I bring that up just because that relationship matters. I think Deion knows Jerry, Jerry knows Deion, and I think they can have the kind of conversations you need to have between owner slash general manager and head coach. You got to be able to be honest and direct with each other. And when you're the head coach in that situation, sometimes things don't go your way. Sometimes you want to do something, and the owner and general manager wants to do something else. And that's part of the deal. Everybody's got a boss, right? So I do think they can be honest with each other. I don't think they'll be walking on eggshells around each other. I think they value their relationship, and I think they can be direct with each other. I think that benefits that situation. So my encouragement to him would be, tell Jerry what you think. It might not go your way. Tell him what you think. He needs to know what you think about this player, this coach, this philosophy, what we're doing on offense, defense. And then if it becomes something where you have to get into it, you have a disagreement, hopefully you can rely on that relationship you've had to work your way through it. And I think that's an important thing.
Just feels like they're two CEOs, though, Jason.
Well, if you think about what the position of head coach is, there's a lot of great coordinators on offense and defense who go become head coaches, and they're not real good at it because maybe they don't fully understand that being a head coach is a leadership position first and foremost. And there has to be layers of leadership in an organization. It's multi-tiered leadership. And so it's owner and general manager, but then it's head coach, and then it's coordinators, it's quarterback, all of that. So I don't know that because both of them have leadership CEO type skills, I don't know that it has to be combative. It can be layered. And I think that's an important piece of this. Hopefully they don't step over each other. And hopefully the big CEO gives the next CEO a chance to put his imprint on the team, because I think that's an important part of it.
But what was it like when Jerry's holding his own press conference?
Sometimes it could be challenging because, as you know, media people
That's a fun word there, challenging.
Yeah. Media people love to find the wedge. And so sometimes, Jerry would say something, and I think the people who were covering our team knew that probably that wasn't something that I agreed with, and they'd say, "Hey, Jerry said this. What do you think about that?" So you had to deal with that. But it comes with the dinner, as Troy used to say. You just figure it out, and you can't let those things detract from what you're trying to build. Sometimes you'd wish they weren't there. You didn't have to deal with those distractions. There's a lot of attention on that team anyway, so why are we, adding fuel to the fire? But it's part of it, and you work your way through it.
I asked Tim Cowlishaw, if I said to Jerry Jones, you can't have a radio show, can't do any interviews for the next 5 years, but I'm going to guarantee you a Super Bowl. Would Jerry be able to go without being interviewed, do his radio shows, if I said you're going to win a Super Bowl?
Again, I just don't think I just don't think he wants to give that up. Someone asked me the other day, do you go in there and do you try to change Jerry Jones? I said, he's 82 years old. You're not changing him. Yeah. This is what he wants to do. He took a lot of risk in his life. He made a lot of money. He'll tell you the story about how he bought the Dallas Cowboys, a risky endeavor, and with that risk comes a lot of reward and a lot of freedom. And part of it is he feels like he wants to be the lead voice of the organization. And I don't see him giving that up anytime soon.
That's for sure. You'll find Jason Garrett, this video. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's on YouTube. And if you love sort of the evolution of the quarterback and throwing and hearing from all these Hall of Famers, it's really great. It's nerd-tastic, as I've come up with that word. And Jace will be on the road. It'll be Football Night in America in the afternoon on Sunday. They start at 2 o'clock with the Rams and the Eagles. Safe travels, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Always enjoy it. Have a good weekend.
That Jason Garrett. There's always one of those questions I have to ask Jason, where he goes, "You always do this to me every time I come on." Yeah,